Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank. The FCS Playoffs return to Fargo for a 13th consecutive season. North Dakota State set to open up against the University of Montana. The Griz have a win last weekend, beating Southeast Missouri State 34-24. First time the Bison and Griz will meet since the postseason in 2015, which also was a second-round game won by the Bison that day, 37-6. It seems crazy that it's actually been that long, but I love going back and reading Mike's column that he posted today from 2003. These schools are forever going to be linked by that game in Missoula that day.
At least at NDSU, yeah. I think. I don't know if Montana's going to really care much about that, but I remember that week when Craig Bohl was getting his team ready, and Mike and I and whoever was covering it at the time were looking into it a little more, and I remember running into Craig outside of the Bison Sports Arena, and I said, I think this is going to be closer than people think, and he goes, shh. Because he knew it would be after, he's a pretty good judge of talent.
No doubt.
Because we're all thinking, okay, it's going to be 49-7, 56-6 or whatever. And he had an inkling that it was going to be closer than we thought, but he didn't really want Montana. He wanted them to be such underdogs that they would be overlooked. So that's why he's going, God, don't be saying that. I'm going, I don't know. But I still went into that game thinking it's going to be a pretty decisive victory. And of course, now we know that it wasn't. Although first half, it was 24. It was 24-2 at one time. And before NDSU put its, I think they just sort of got some confidence that, wow, they can hang in there physically with this team over time in that game and didn't get blown out. And that's how I think the rally started. And with the 25-24 win, when the field goal went wide right, I just went, wow, what just happened here? What have we just witnessed? And even on the flight home, we're just in almost disbelief that actually happened. But that was, to me, the jumping off point in the Division I decision.
Yeah. Then you fast forward to the game in 2015. ESPN, Brent Musburger's there. There's the smoke of the mountain, Missoula, all the attention on Carson Wentz. The Bison are the defending champs, and Bob Stitt's first game as head coach of Montana, trying to restore the roar. The Griz win the game on the last second, and lo and behold, the following week, Jeff, they got beat. Cal Poly went into Missoula the following week and beat the Griz after that.
Well, that was kind of, I think, reminiscent of the Bob Stitt era, is that it just was a little more talk than substance. And that was a good win for him, as that night NDSU didn't play well. But when he said after the game in his presser, the roar has been restored, or the aura has been restored, something like that. Well, let's fast forward that season to December. And when Chris Kleiman gets up and does his press conference after the 37-6 win, and it seemed worse than that, by the way. What would he say? Championships are not won in August.
Yeah, that was the opening line of that. That was
directed right at Bob Stitt's comment on the aura has been restored.
Well, now Bobby Hauck is back, and he's never coached in Fargo, and now he has.
I was surprised by that, but you're right.
As Montana comes in, they have not played regular season. They played a regular season game in 2014 when Mick Delaney was the coach of the Griz that year. That was a tough Bison 22-10 kind of win. If you would have told me Montana was in this football game at 9:50 or not 10:50 on Saturday night, I know I would have believed you. No. Southeast Missouri State was up 24-3, but two special teams touchdowns later, and the Griz rolled and are here after squeaking in. They were the last team into the field of 24 on Selection Sunday.
I feel like Southeast Missouri, being a rare entrant in the playoffs in the last many years, just sort of forgot how to win games at that point. And I think Montana, with their special teams, TDs, put on obviously the rally and had all the momentum. They shut it down. Southeast Missouri, they shut their attack down. They did what NDSU did against South Dakota State in the second half, and just didn't continue to do the things that made them successful. Montana is it's an interesting dichosm of a team. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get here, and that was a typical of their season, boiled down to one game. Incredibly poor first half and a really good second half.
Well, I know you watched I think all of the Sacramento State game they played on ESPN when Johnson got hurt. It was a dirty hit, actually, in that game against Sacramento State. He comes out. He doesn't play the Weber State game, and they lose there. And I thought Matt Entz said this really perfectly on Monday at his press conference when I asked him about Johnson. He says, well, as he goes, the team goes. And that can be taken one of two ways. Either they can be really good, or sometimes it can be not so good. Schizophrenic is what I've heard also described of Johnson.
He may be great Saturday. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
He may be great, and he may lead them to a win. Going in and looking at this game this week, I see a couple factors here that are going to play in the home team's favor.
Okay.
Number one, Montana's not been good on the road this year. Mm-hmm. You just look at their schedule. They won at Idaho State 28-20, which Idaho State was bad. Horrible. They lost at Sac State, albeit overtime. They lost at Weber State 24-21, close game. They lost at Montana State 55-21. They, in between Cal Poly, Eastern Washington, big home wins, but that's Cal Poly, Eastern Washington, who have literally the poorest defenses ever in their respective schools' history. The one caveat is the early season 49-14 win at Indiana State, which a place NDSU struggled, but then that was early in the year.
Yep.
So that's not a good trend going in when you're not playing well. You're not winning games on the road at this stage of the season. And number two, what's the status of their top two running backs? Yeah. One has transferred to the portal, Marcus Knight, and the other, Nick Osmo, finished the game in a sling.
Yeah, I just visited with the voice of the Griz, Riley Corcoran, and he said he's trying to go, but that does not sound optimistic that he'll be able to. He left the game and against SEMO, that does not sound optimistic that he'd be able to play on Saturday.
I don't think so. Yeah. When you're in a sling at the end of the game and you have 5 days to prepare for North Dakota State, which can be a pretty physical team.
Absolutely.
And then you throw into that.
Well, you're in your third string running back then. That's tough. That's tough.
You're in your third string running back in a key playoff game on the road. It's getting down there.
Depth is Montana, though, has some depth. You look, their defensive line is. I'm interested to see how they're going to match up with the Bison offensive line. That to me is the real key here. And Corcoran was telling me that, hey, rush defense, they've actually been really good outside of that Montana State game. But, Jeff, no one has been able to stop. Even the Jacks, outside of one half, literally no one has stopped the Bison offensive line yet this season.
No.
Arizona did for two drives in that game, and SDSU did for the second half. That's it for this entire season.
And don't forget that NDSU has Cody Mauck, who I think could be in the top 3 in the Walter Payton Award.
Yeah.
The way people are putting out their votes. Yep. I know he's not carrying the ball, and I know he's not throwing the ball, but he's a left tackle, and that's a pretty good start. Then next to him, you got a guy who's going to the college
PA game.
Is a 6-year guy. They've played 125 games between them. Yeah. That's a pretty good offensive line right there. I think Westberg's been really solid. Good. Gray Zabel is the best 6-man in the country.
And Kubis has played, I think, now 27 games in a row. He started there.
And he's playing the best of his career. He looks more the part to me this year.
Absolutely. That alone. And then you add in the fact of what Cam Miller did with his legs against UND. I think, especially now with the departure of Ganella into the portal, I think maybe they let Cam, do they turn him loose like they did with Easton Stick a few years back?
Well, maybe, but I don't know. I would maybe not right away. I think you got to test, see what's going. But I will add some balance to this discussion before you get all giddy and NDSU is going to face Sanford in the quarters. That special teams can be a difference, and Montana's really good. Oh. Malik Flowers is an all-time great in FCS and kickoff returns for touchdowns. He's got 7 in his career. Made the difference last week. Junior Bergen returned a punt for a touchdown. So special teams.
Emphasizes that. That's really interesting.
He used to be a special teams coach for many years.
That, to me, is really interesting to see how that plays out. And with the departures the Bison have had in the portal, 2 of those guys played a lot of Hart and Siegel played a ton on special teams. That to me is a glaring deal there, Jeff, when you look at those 2 guys, that how much they played, not just in their respective positions, but how much they played on special teams.
But NDSU still plays a lot of starters in special teams. You're going to see Dawson Weber out there on kickoff coverage. You see Colby Johnson, Kaiser out there.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised on that. That's, you got to do it at this particular stage of the game. For the Bison defensively, matching up here with this Montana offense, we've seen them, I think, since the bye week consistently get, I think, healthier and better. Big challenge this week now with a quarterback that may give them an opportunity to get a takeaway or two.
I think they'll handle the run game. I do. I just don't see Montana running rush shot all over NDSU. I just don't see that. I don't see that with their old line down to their third running back. And Lucas Johnson's a good runner, but he's not Quincy Patterson.
No.
He's not Cole Payton.
Well, that's an interesting part because we saw what Montana State did. Do we see a lot of number 15 this weekend? Do we see the dual quarterback run game? That's, I think, a definite potential.
Right.
I think for me,
it's certainly on. It's got to be in high thought mode in the NDSU offensive coordinator room.
Rushing defense, actually, Montana's better. It's ranked 34th. NDSU's 49th in rushing defense. So,
but is that a product of the Big Sky being a little pass happy? I don't know about that.
There's a few more teams that now
there are
run
Sac
the ball
State, Weber State,
that do that. But that's interesting to note heading into this game. Then, by the way, they are number one in your favorite stat, net punting. They're number one.
They're the favorite.
Teams. They're number one in special teams.
I love that stat.
I know you do.
It avoids hidden yardage. It's a great stat. You're mocking me on
I'm
that
not
stat.
Mocking you.
Yes, you are.
I'm laughing at it.
Your favorite stat.
You do love that stat. That's the part that's intriguing in this game. I want to talk because we didn't pod last week, so I want to just. I know we're now 10 days, 11 days past it, but with the portal window opening the day it did, the day after the regular season, and the three Bison players, Dom Ganella, DJ Hart, Marquis Siegel, that went in. And just from talking with some of the players, looked like some of them had hit him out of left field as well, that was not something that was expected.
That's what Zach Mathis said. He goes, I was surprised. But I think they've moved on. I think the off week helped them to take time to forget about it, flush it. That's a good way to put it. Will it affect the game?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Siegel's good.
Siegel's been very good.
Hart was making a difference.
Coming on. Yep.
But I don't think this game's not going to be won in the air, I don't think.
Yeah. Ganella had been a non-factor basically since the Indiana State game with a couple fumbles that he had in that particular game. So who do we see more of? Obviously, Jaden Price comes right on that. Imagine it's Price, Talbert, and Eubanks now. It's going to be a rotation of those three going forward.
That's enough. I mean, how many years has NDSU gotten playing two of the whole game?
Well, I remember the national championship in 2018 where it was a true freshman in Josh Hayes and a redshirt freshman or a sophomore in Jalen Allison that were out there.
Yeah.
That they were thrown into the mix in the national championship game.
To me, this game's more about
Bridges. Sorry, that was out there too.
NDSU making them one-dimensional, stopping the run, and then forcing Lucas Johnson, who has his moments of inconsistency, to beat you with his arm.
I'm looking.
Is
at
that genius analysis or what?
It's fantastic. Hart is a tough one for me, just because I thought when you looked at the wide receiver room with Sproles gone, that Mathis had established himself there. Braylon Henderson, you knew what you got, but DJ was coming on. That's why it's still befuddling to me to leave when you're getting opportunities with the ball. That's the part I struggle with still.
I just don't know, and I don't think these kids understand what is out there in the rest of the FCS, because all we saw one FBS offer for Siegel, Colorado State, which
you got another one now. Akron's in the mix. So, yeah.
All right. But it's going to be mainly FCS for the other two, I would imagine. And what is that? Most of FCS are basketball schools. Are they not all in on basketball for the most part?
Yeah, that's probably. I mean, Youngstown is probably more football than they are basketball.
I'm just saying most of the FCS
in general.
In general,
yeah, that's probably. I'd say that's accurate.
Certainly in the non-scholarship
There's no doubt
venues,
about that.
they're all basketball.
I'd say on the eastern side of the United States, I'd say that's absolutely accurate. I don't even know if football might be behind baseball for some of those schools. Frankly. Yeah. Might be basketball, baseball, depending on what school you're talking about.
But I guess my point is they've been here and don't know on a day-to-day basis what it's like out there.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Like Illinois State is more basketball, even though they haven't been that great in basketball. You look at their basketball arena and facilities and go, okay, they put some in football recently.
Yep.
Renovated the stadium, so they're making strides there. I haven't seen the results on the field yet. But on a day-to-day basis, Indiana State, there's another classic.
Right. And I look at some of the offers that have come out, especially in Northern Iowa, Illinois State.
Northern Iowa's a basketball school.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they care about football, but I mean, they're definitely.
But I don't think they're all in.
Their bread and butter is basketball. I wouldn't argue.
What are they paying Ben Jacobson?
They're over $1 million.
Yeah,
he's getting paid pretty well. Yep.
What are the other mid majors? What's NDSU paying their basketball coach?
Not $1 million.
No.
David Rich would definitely tell you that. It's definitely not $1 million. I am interested to see where each of them pan out. Now, I will say on the other side, the Bison were active today in the portal, made their first offer.
Yeah.
Beresford, South Dakota's Blake Peterson, Iowa State, grad transfer, defensive end. That's interesting, Kolpack. And Entz has told us both that we are not going to go into the portal with someone we don't have some sort of connection or relationship with.
I'm guessing they knew him in the recruiting process.
Yeah, they didn't offer him, or somebody knows him that they can vouch here. I mean, he's from down the road. Beresford's not that far. That's a guy I look at. That's Braden Thomas-esque right there. 2 years of eligibility at a position where the Bison are going to need somebody on the end next year. That's, if you look at the spots, I think defensive end, I think running back, I think maybe on the back end of the defense that they're going to dabble in the transfer portal.
Well, and they can tell the young man that okay, we had this kid, Braden Thomas, come in and he's in an NFL practice squad. Is he still? Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah, that worked out. That worked out.
How many
well
kids
there.
in the portal now? Over 400 FCS?
We're over 500
Over
now.
500?
Yeah. And we haven't even opened the FBS world yet. That opens up on Monday.
Okay, so here's when push comes to shove on some of these FCS programs. If you have kids going to the portal, now if NDSU, we know this, if kids go in the portal, they're done. You're not coming back.
Yes.
You could come back, but
the door is closed.
The door is closed.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the case for a lot of these other schools when they have kids go in the portal?
Have you ever heard of that? I've not heard anybody going back after they go in.
At some point, there's so many kids out there.
Would you want them back?
No, absolutely not.
As a coach, I would say no.
I'm just wondering if some teams that are 4-8, 4-7 have kids go in the portal and go, we really don't have anybody at corner. We'll take you back.
That would be a hard sell for your locker room.
Well, you lose the locker room. I mean,
I don't think so. There may be far and few between, but I would find that as a hard deal as a head football coach to say, this guy left, but we need him, so we're going to open the doors to have him come back. I don't know about that.
Not all 500 are going to another Division I FCS school or FBS. There may be a good chunk that are going into the portal because they're either quitting football or going down a level because they're just not good enough.
Correct. And honestly, the former is actually getting more players that way than the latter. More just being done. And I didn't expect that. I thought some would find a new home. And
why would you go in the portal if you're done? Aren't you just done?
You want me to answer that? I think it's for the attention part of it. I think it's to get your name out there.
Just to see what's out there?
Right. Absolutely. That's the status of where we're at right now. And it's only going to get crazier come Monday when the FBS transfer portal opens up. It's just going to get freaking wild on that. I want to spend a couple minutes because we always talk about just not everything college football. There's two things I want to bring up. We are now in the silly season, the hiring season, right? So I'm looking at the available jobs that are out there. It's certainly not like last year when USC opened up and then Oklahoma opened up and LSU and Notre Dame opened up. These are a lot of group of 5 and then lower Power 5 jobs that are available right now. Do you see any of the FCS hierarchy making the move up?
You can't discount it. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, Trent Dilfer just got the job at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. He's a high school coach. Now he's the head coach at UAB.
Wow.
That's not the Jeff Saturday route, but it's pretty close. Yeah. That's
are you asking me where is Matt Entz a candidate for one of these?
Is Entz's name, do you think it would get thrown out there here?
Well, absolutely it'll be considered. It has to with his record. But I don't know. I'm not feeling any hot movement right now. I'm just not.
Because a guy I thought would get some heat is Jamie Chadwell, the Coastal Carolina coach. Not hearing that a whole lot.
I think it's got to be something absolutely a can't turn down opportunity. And I say this for the following reason. He's coaching his kid right now.
Yep.
And you can only do that once in your life. And I pretty close family, and I just think they like it here. And it's going to take an exceptional offer for him at this point to leave NDSU with his family so ingrained at NDSU right now.
Here are the openings. Cincinnati, that's a good job.
That's a can't turn down.
Colorado, although Dion has been offered said job.
But they won't offer it to an FCS coach.
Florida Atlantic.
Let me put it this way. If you're not Dion, an FCS coach.
Florida Atlantic, that's Lane Kiffin's old stopping ground.
Ah.
Georgia Tech, not bad.
Yep.
Liberty, because Hugh Freeze left for Auburn. South Florida, that's not a bad job. USF wasn't that bad.
Are you saying that? But would they go to the
FCS route
and hire a kid?
I would think
hire a guy from NDSU.
I don't know. No, I'm just telling you these.
Okay, in general. Okay.
Stanford's opening. I don't know. Stanford. David Shaw had a heck of a run there. The last couple of years, the bottom dropped out, but that's a team that's always been near the top of the
Some
Pac-12.
programs didn't rebound from COVID, and that was one of them.
Texas State, they look like they're going to take the Incarnate Word, or Casey Keeler, excuse me. And then Tulsa looks like they're taking the Incarnate Word head coach. UAB's off now because they got Dilfer. UNLV's open again. How can nobody win at UNLV?
I would take that job for...
Really?
No.
It's
you just
Las
told
Vegas,
me nobody...
But somebody's got to figure out a way to win there. And Western Michigan, PJ Fleck's old job is open now. Now what about that one for Matt Entz and the MAC?
What's it pay? I don't think he's hot on the MAC. I don't.
Because NDSU could be in the MAC.
Yeah. I just don't think he's hot on a MAC job.
So you're saying generally you don't believe this would be the year.
Doesn't seem like
here.
it.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like it.
Okay. The other big deal that came out is the official expansion was announced today of the college football playoff beginning in 2024.
Thank God. Hallelujah.
There'll be 12 teams in the FBS postseason beginning in 2024.
Another reason to go FBS.
Yes, because there is a
Tulane.
Tulane would be in it if the playoffs happen this year. Tulane, and by the way, Chris Kleiman's Kansas State Wildcats would be in it this year if there was a 12-team deal.
If Tulane could be in that 12-team field, right. North Dakota State at some point could be in that field.
Again, not saying every year.
No.
But it's the best group of 5 team that get highly ranked, or if you're the conference champ, you would have an automatic berth in the college football playoff. So if you're the best of the group of 5 teams.
If you're the American
champ, you're in.
Yep.
If you're ranked that highly.
Yep.
And you would have to be. If you're considering the kind of year you would have, I would think you would be in the conversation there. And there's 6 at-large bids, which we think those are going to be gobbled up by the SEC and the Big Ten.
If UCLA and USC can go to the Big Ten, North Dakota State can go to the American.
I don't think the American is... I think I would like that. I don't think that's hot up there. I don't discount the MAC. I'm going to keep MAC-tion on. I
don't know, man. Those Thursday games. Oh. But at least it'd be indoors and it wouldn't be 5 degrees.
Exactly. Just keep an eye out on that. We'll see. But again, it's finally happening. It's going to be huge. And I'll say this to counter on the FCS deal, because the TV deal is going to be monstrous here. In the current calendar, Kolpack, that's going to take place the weekend of the FCS semifinals. If you think for some reason that those games are still going to be on television, you are, at least on ESPN, you are sadly mistaken.
Talking about ESPN Plus.
Here's the thing.
You think ESPN would not even have a contract?
The 2024 is when all the championships are up for ESPN. And from all the media stuff I've read on this, I think they want to the NCAA wants to parcel it out, that the women's basketball championship is its own deal. The College World Series, the Softball World Series, FCS football is going to be up for grabs.
Who would want it?
Here's the right. ESPN does a really nice job with it. And clearly they've made it a priority this year by putting the game on ABC. Dan Margulis, who was on the show, who's the director of college sports programming, has said, we value FCS football. But to your point, where would you put it, though? If you've got the college football opening round games, those are going on ESPN. They're not going anywhere else. Maybe to ABC. That's why the FCS could get squeezed out there. And those are their highest profile games, the 2 semifinals and the championship.
Maybe we do it.
Hey, why not?
Yeah.
We can do it. That'd be really intriguing to see what happens there. Just something to keep in. File it away. Izzo said this. You can yell at me in a couple years when I'm wrong on it. That
I would never do that.
You'd never do that, of course. Give me a quick word here on South Dakota State. Seems like it's forever and a day since we've seen them. It has
They still
been.
playing?
They are still alive. They have Delaware. Potential that Adam Bach could play. John Stingelmeyer said that on his radio show earlier this week. What do we make of finally seeing the Jackrabbits be back on the football field?
I think they got a clear path to Frisco, and I think they got a dominating path to Frisco. I think they're pretty good.
Delaware, then
play the winner of Holy Cross, New Hampshire. Yeah. The other side, you got.
Then it's potential either Montana State.
Weber could beat Montana State.
That's the upset call. I'm going to give you a pick already for the pick 'em on Saturday. I think Weber's going to win that football game.
So we maybe see Weber and Brookings.
Potentially there. What about the issue there with Millie Mack Garza? I know you know Willie Mack from his days in Fargo.
Yeah, well, he's suspended this week. Yep, unfortunately, and that's followed him throughout his career. He had an issue before he came here. I remember doing that story. Fortunately, he's got some support system within the coaching arena that continue to try to help him out. Is
that a distraction this weekend, you think, with Montana State? Especially playing
a
rival?
Can't help.
Like Weber State that's coming in there? That's going to be tough. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out on Saturday. The other side where the Bison are at, Richmond goes to Sacramento State. We'll see if Sac State can finally get off the schneid and win a postseason game against a Richmond team I wouldn't mess around with. Spiders have played some good football this season. That'll be interesting to see how that game goes.
Cross-country trip, though.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. No doubt about that. And then Southeastern Louisiana and Samford. The winner of that game will play the winner of the Bison-Montana game. Sela rallied at a crazy game to beat Idaho.
I like their quarterback.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Sanford might be without its starting quarterback, something to keep an eye on in that game. So it's not just a rubber stamp that we'll see the Bulldogs come here. The one team I'll give you a heads up on, just a gut. You know how I feel about this. Your guys from Gardner-Webb. Watch out on Saturday.
That running back
William
was
and Mary.
tough.
Yes.
That running back was tough.
William and Mary got all the love from the TV selection show, and they had a nice year. They were 10-1. Their only loss was to Elon this season. They have an FBS win. Let's just see how Gardner-Webb goes in there. The Big South has traditionally put teams in the quarterfinals. Kennesaw, Coastal out of that league have made it, so let's just keep an eye on the
somebody who finished runner-up for the nickel, I will take that into advisement. I just couldn't wait to get that in.
I know you couldn't do that. Before we wrap, I want to talk some hoops here. David Richmond told me yesterday in my show they're shutting down Grant Nelson for about a week to 10 days, maybe longer, with an ankle injury, so he's not going to play the games out west. Likely the last two non-conference home games the weekend after that. They're 1-7 right now. What? Give me a status of where the things are at right now. It's not good.
No, it's. Does Dave need to go into the portal more?
I know that's not his favorite thing.
It's too early to say that now, but let's wait until January, February, and see if they can turn it around and see if these young true freshmen can up their game. But depend on three of them pretty heavily.
Ostreiter, Waddles, and Wheeler Thomas. That's a lot to put on their shoulder. And Davis Miller is actually four that you're really counting on out there, especially if Nelson can't go. And Morgan got dinged up a little bit against Jacksonville State in the final game on Sunday. On the flip side, here's Jory Collins' team, unbeaten. Best start they've had in 18 years since the first transition year when Amy Ruley was still coaching. They've got games against two Maction teams and then Northern Iowa next week. This is a heck of a start for his
Yeah, and I think their two portal kids have really helped a lot.
Oh, man.
Brought some stability, I think.
Athleticism is what they have.
And I really like that true freshman guard, Elle Evans, 6'3". She's got potential to be a star. And we've been waiting to see if they can get a kid like that and develop a kid into somebody that, like South Dakota State and South Dakota have had over the years, is somebody that can just be that next level kid at a mid-major.
Athleticism. How many times have you and I talked about it when we've seen the Bison play the Jacks?
Strength.
And play USD?
Strength,
they're just totally overmatched.
Right.
Now, they haven't played them yet, so let's not. I'm going to pump the brakes because they're 2-30 in their last 32 games against SDSU. But if they're in the ball game, that's an achievement in itself because those games with SDSU have not been close.
Yeah, I just like to see them match up physically in an athletic standpoint, and then you got a chance.
I think
South Dakota was so good last year. They sleptwalked through the game here.
Yeah.
and still won by whatever.
It was 20, 25 points.
I thought they played awful.
Yeah.
I did. And I thought
USD you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they played awful here in Fargo and still won by whatever.
Considerable amount. That's the kind
awful
of
for
uphill.
them, I should say. Awful for them.
That's the uphill battle that they have that the Bison are facing, and we'll see. But it's a promising start. And I said this on my show, and I'll defer to you on this. It's one thing to do it. It's another thing to get butts back in the seats. When fans have been apathetic for a decade and a half, you got to be competitive with SDSU right before you get butts back in the seats.
I think so.
It's one thing to go out and win, but before people actually say, okay, I'm willing to give you my money, but you got to prove it first before you get to that point.
Yeah, it's too bad there's not double headers back in, I just think you'd get a much better and engaged fan base.
Yeah.
I think the Fargo, us people in the upper Midwest in general, we sort of got to observe first.
Yeah,
okay.
Before you're really
willing to
commit,
dive in.
Before you're willing to trust it. Yeah, I hear you there. Don't forget, Bison Game Day will be live Saturday morning, 10 a.m. on WDAY. Jeff, Logan Campbell, Kyle Emanuel, myself, inside. Last year, remember, we were banished outside. We're going to be inside.
God bless you.
We're going to be, after we were, especially the high temperature. Looks
I'm still hypothermic from Macomb, Illinois.
It looks like it's going to be 8
my,
degrees.
My hands are still sort of blue.
Still shaking there. It looks
Somebody
like.
goes, you were shaking on the air. I was shaking on the air. You know why I was shaking on the air? Because I was massively underdressed.
It was freaking cold.
It was just biting.
Yeah. So we'll be inside in the Fargo Dome for our show at 10 a.m. Again, a reminder, the game is on ESPN Plus, 2:30 on Saturday afternoon, and then we'll wrap things up with our traditional post-game show. The two of us, Mike McFeely, Eric Peterson, will join to break it down to see if the Bison are moving on or if this season is over as they take on the Grizzlies from Montana. Should be a fun day. It's always one of my favorites. It's the second round with all the games going on simultaneous to see who's going to move on to the quarterfinals next week.
My favorite's the semifinals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
if
see
they get there.
If we get there. Still a long way to go. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.